Top 15 WWE wrestlers who are inspired by previous gimmicks. Wrestling, at its heart, has always been an industry that thrives on reusing ideas. Every year, WWE brings back old concepts and gimmicks, and when it's done right, it can lead to some amazing storylines and keep fans excited. But if it's done poorly, things can go wrong pretty fast. Finding the right balance when reusing a gimmick is crucial, and over the years, WWE has seen its fair share of hits and misses when it comes to copying old characters. Sometimes, fans don't even notice that a character is just a version of a past one, either because the original was from years ago or WWE hides the resemblance well. This works out perfectly for WWE since they can reuse an idea without getting too much backlash. It actually happens more than most people realize. So, let's dive into some of the most surprising character copies WWE has put out over the years. Before we dive in, please do not forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Your subscription helps us continue creating quality content for you. Let us know your thoughts in the comments section after viewing this video. Here are WWE gimmicks you probably never knew were recycled. Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan, one of the biggest names in wrestling history, owes a lot of his career to superstar Billy Graham. Many wrestlers, including Jesse the Body Ventura, were influenced by Graham, but Hulk took it to the next level. Hogan admitted that he pretty much copied Billy Graham's style, from his mannerisms to his look. "He took my look. The ear. You started the ear," Hogan jokes, saying that Graham was way ahead of his time. Billy Graham's flashy style, with his larger-than-life personality, helped inspire Hulk Hogan to become a megastar in the 80s. Hogan even said, "Billy Graham was the main reason I got into this business. I said, man, I just want to be like him." I molded my whole career around Dusty Rhodes and superstar Billy Graham. I stole a little bit from each of them. Hogan saw Graham's success in the 70s and thought, if it worked for him, it could work for me. And it did. He took what Graham had started and turned it into his own brand, eventually becoming the most famous wrestler in the world. The flashy, muscular look, the larger-than-life persona. It was all inspired by Billy Graham. Hogan's career became a perfect example of how taking inspiration from someone else can lead to your own success in the wrestling world. Razor Ramon. Razor Ramon took a lot of his character from two famous figures, Manny Rivera and Tony Montana from Scarface. This influence is especially clear in his early vignettes. Vince McMahon hadn't seen Scarface, so he was impressed by Razor's ideas, many of which were taken directly from the movie. Razor would say things like, "Say goodnight to the bad guy. Everybody say hello to the bad guy. And say hello to my little friend. Say hello to Razor Ramon." He'd even say, "I bury those cockroaches." And "I'm some kind of filthy, stinking, through with you now, get out of here. Don't make me get nasty. I probably scarred her heart for life." Fast forward to 2004, and you could see the influence Razor had on Carlito's character. Carlito's vignettes were almost identical to Razor's, right down to the spitting, which became a big part of Carlito's act. Carlito would say, "I spit in the face of people who don't want to be cool," showing how he took that style and made it his own. Bray Wyatt. Bray Wyatt took inspiration from two very different characters in movies. One was Max Cady from Cape Fear, played by Robert De Niro. The WWF's Waylon Mercy had a similar vibe. He looked calm and collected on the outside, like a Southern gentleman. But underneath, he had a dark, violent side. Unfortunately, Waylon's character didn't last long, so we never really got to fully see that darker side. Waylon would say things like, "I enjoy worms, but I don't enjoy worms crawling on me. What we need to do is follow the rules, you know what I mean?" Bray Wyatt took some elements from both Waylon and Cady, especially the way they looked and spoke. His style had that creepy, haunting presence, like the kind of guy who could be calm one second and then flip to something much darker the next. Bray would say things like, "My daughter, she doesn't even know me after I went inside. Her mama told her I was dead. I'm as large as him. He is as small as I behold the new face of fear." It was chilling, just like the characters he drew inspiration from. Paul Burchill. Another character inspired by a movie was Paul Burchill, who took ideas from Johnny Depp's portrayal of Captain Jack Sparrow in Pirates of the Caribbean. Burchill's pirate gimmick was a hit at first, and fans loved it. But after a while, the pirate parts of his character were reduced, and Paul was taken off TV after just a few months. Part of the reason was an injury, but Disney also wasn't too happy with how much Paul looked like Jack Sparrow. Burchill would say things like, "Bottoms up, hello! They're going to think you're a joke. It's not a bum, is it? It's not a bloody bum, is it?" He really leaned into the wild, unpredictable nature of his character, and people couldn't help but laugh at his antics. Sting. Sting's character was also inspired by a film, but interestingly, it was Scott Hall who pitched the idea to him. Look and style were based on Brandon Lee's character, Eric Draven, from The Crow. Sting had this amazing presence about him. He didn't need to say much. His charisma spoke for itself. He could communicate more with just a look than most wrestlers could in an entire interview. At first, WWE didn't see it as a big deal, just a cool reference to a popular film. But as Sting's popularity grew, they realized it was a bigger deal. They started making merchandise like action figures and t-shirts. Eventually, the company stepped in and told Sting to change his makeup to avoid any legal issues. Later on, Sting's character also took inspiration from another iconic character, the Joker, especially after Heath Ledger's portrayal in The Dark Knight. Sting began to adopt some of the Joker's wild, unpredictable energy, saying things like, "I don't want to kill you, you complete me. I know, you've taken it too far. Everybody thinks you've snapped. There's something that's exhilarating about being insane." The Road Warriors and Demolition. Speaking of characters inspired by movies, let's talk about the Road Warriors. Their look and name were inspired by the movie Mad Max 2, which was huge during the 1980s. Hawk and Animal, the original Road Warriors, had that tough, post-apocalyptic warrior vibe that made them stand out. But, of course, not everyone was so original. Fans often said Demolition was just an imitation of the Road Warriors. They had similar gear and the same tough guy attitude, but many thought they didn't quite live up to the original. Then there was another team called the Powers of Pain, who were even more a copy of the Road Warriors. In recent years, WWE tried to shake things up with a group called Retribution. This faction wore masks and hoods, just like vigilantes. They caused chaos on both Raw and SmackDown, especially during a time when WWE was struggling with ratings and creative ideas. Some fans thought this was WWE's response to the political unrest surrounding the Antifa protests in 2020, as Retribution seemed like a rebellious group, ready to take on the system. Parody gimmicks. WWE has always had fun parody gimmicks, characters that didn't take themselves too seriously. Take Gillberg, a much smaller version of Goldberg, who was a funny twist on the Powerhouse. Then there was Shark Boy, who copied Stone Cold Steve Austin with his own catchphrase, "That's the bottom line, 'cause Shark Boy said so," and a fishing line instead of a beer can. It was silly, but memorable. Another great parody was Black Machismo, played by Jay Lethal, who imitated the legendary Macho Man Randy Savage. Fans loved it, even though it was all for laughs. Then we had Damien Sandow, who played the Miz's stunt double, and that hilarious moment when they recreated the handshake from the Mega Powers. WWE also had the African Dream, a playful version of Dusty Rhodes' American Dream persona. And let's not forget the Blue World Order, a fun take on the NWO faction from WCW. The Renegade was another character who copied the Ultimate Warrior's look and energy, but didn't quite capture the magic. But the most over-the-top parody gimmicks were Baked Diesel and Baked Razor Ramon, a comedy act that tried to mimic Diesel and Razor Ramon in a very exaggerated, poorly done way. Dog. Then there was the tag team Chronic, which was like a stoner version of the APA. Their catchphrase, "If that check bounces, so do you," was a lame attempt at being cool. The artist formerly known as Prince Loya was another bad character, trying to imitate Prince, but missing all the superstar's charm. Vince Russo's approach to WCW was filled with gimmicks that didn't connect with fans. Many of them are still remembered as laughable because they were cheap imitations of what worked in WWF. If you're enjoying this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more in-depth explorations of the fascinating stories within the world of sports entertainment. Hit the notification bell to stay updated on our latest content. Velveteen Dream. One of the standout characters in NXT was Velveteen Dream. Inspired by Prince, Dream's persona was a unique twist on the Prince gimmick. But unlike other attempts to do something similar, Dream truly made the character his own. He had the charisma and style to pull it off, taking influence from stars like Gorgeous George, Adorable Adrian Adonis, and Goldust. Dream's character wasn't just about his look, it was about his confidence, flair, and charisma. He embraced the extravagant side of his persona, making it work in a way that few others could. Fans loved him because, even though his character had a comical side. The Nature Boy Ric Flair. Buddy Rogers would prove to be one of the most emulated pro wrestlers. The obvious comparison is the Nature Boy Ric Flair, the arrogant heel showman that talked the talk, walked the walk, dressed to the nines, and used the figure 4 leg lock as a finishing hold. Got him coming off, he had Buddy going. But wait a minute, there's that thing you've got to look for, the figure or grapevine. Now, watch him. Buddy's skill and technique between the ropes had made him a master of his craft. Buddy Rogers, a blonde guy with a fancy jacket strutting around and telling people he's the greatest. Vincent Kennedy McMahon was said to be influenced by Buddy too. McMahon's famous billionaire power walk was also inspired by Rogers' strut. His walk that only he can walk is a signature of Mr. McMahon. He somehow walks like he's got a broomstick up his ass. Val Venis. Rick Rude wasn't officially labeled as an adult film star back in the 80s and early 90s, but anyone paying attention could pick up on the hints. He had that confidence, charm, and a bit of edge that implied something a little more daring. Fast forward to WWE's Attitude Era, and suddenly, pushing those boundaries was not just accepted, it was encouraged. That's where Val Venis came in. Venis took Rude's suggestive persona and amped it up for the new era. He was bold, unapologetic, and embraced his character openly, fitting right into WWE's shift toward a more edgy, no-holds-barred style. Unlike Rude, who had to be subtle about his gimmick, Venis could be as over-the-top as he wanted. This modern twist on Rude's character struck a chord with fans and helped make Venis one of the era's standout stars, solidifying his place in WWE for years. D-Generation X, inspired by the NWO. When WCW launched the NWO in 1996, bringing together 3 of wrestling's biggest stars, WWE knew they needed something just as bold to compete. The NWO was becoming the hottest thing in wrestling, especially with Hulk Hogan at its core. Vince McMahon realized he had to create his own rebellious faction to match it. Enter D-Generation X. DX brought a new edge to WWE and became a driving force behind the Attitude Era. They weren't just a counter to the NWO, they were a key part of WWE's transformation into a more daring, unpredictable brand. With DX's wild antics and memorable moments, they helped WWE claw back in the ratings war and forever changed the landscape of wrestling. JBL. Wrestling has always had its greedy villains, and WWE's most memorable ones include both Ted DiBiase and JBL. DiBiase owned the 80s and early 90s as the $1 Million Man, a character who flaunted his wealth and power. Years later, JBL transformed into a wealthy Texan with a similar attitude, bringing that same smug, money-hungry energy. Even though Bradshaw, JBL, had been known for his time in tag teams, he slid easily into the role of a rich villain when he went solo. Though their looks differed, JBL and DiBiase shared the same character foundation, proving that the rich guy gimmick still packed a punch. Kevin Thorne, inspired by Gangrel. Kevin Thorne's vampire character was clearly inspired by Gangrel, the mysterious leader of the Brood from the Attitude Era. But unlike Gangrel, who was backed by his crew and had solid wrestling skills, Thorne's character just didn't take off. WWE tried several times to make Thorne's vampire act work, even giving him a new gimmick as Mordecai, but nothing really clicked. In the end, Thorne's time in WWE is remembered as a missed opportunity. The lack of a strong character or wrestling ability turned his vampire gimmick into one of WWE's mid-card struggles. A reminder that not every attempt to bring back a familiar style is a guaranteed success. The Godwins. In the mid to late 80s, Hillbilly Jim became a fan favorite with his fun-loving country character, even though he never won a title. Dressed in overalls and always carrying a slop bucket, Jim entertained the crowd, creating a cult following in WWE. Fast forward about 10 years, and the Godwins arrived, sporting nearly the same hillbilly look and carrying on Jim's spirit. This time, though, the Godwins found more success in the tag division, winning the tag titles twice. Hillbilly Jim even managed them when they first started out, which added a nice connection to his legacy. One key difference between them was that Hillbilly Jim always played the good guy, while the Godwins switched back and forth between heroes and villains, keeping things fresh. But in the end, both Jim and the Godwins were slop bucket carrying, good time hillbillies who had a special place in WWE during their eras. Smoking Guns. Back in the 80s and early 90s, cowboy-themed wrestlers were all over the wrestling world, especially in the mid-card. The Southern Boys, a tag team featuring Steve Armstrong and Tracy Smothers, had a brief but memorable run in WCW, dressed in cowboy gear and bringing that Western style to the ring. When WWE introduced the Smoking Guns just a few years later, the similarities were hard to miss. It was clear WWE wanted to keep up with their competition. The Smoking Guns lasted for a few years in the mid-90s, but the tag team scene at that time wasn't very strong, so they didn't make a huge impact. However, this run gave Billy Gunn his start in WWE, eventually launching him into a successful career that would peak during the Attitude Era. So, while the Guns didn't reach the heights of other teams, they did leave a mark, especially by paving the way for one of WWE's big stars. Rodney Mack. Rodney Mack's character in WWE had a lot in common with Bad News Brown, even though Mack had Teddy Long as his manager, something Brown never had during his time in WWE. If you look closely, you'll see that both men shared a street-smart attitude and a hard-hitting, brawling fighting style. They also had similar physiques, making their characters seem almost like two versions of the same person. While Bad News Brown wasn't a huge star in WWE back in the late 80s, he was unique in his own right. He had this tough, no-nonsense persona that set him apart. When WWE tried to create Rodney Mack in the early 2000s, they seemed to borrow a lot from Bad News Brown's character. Mack's story followed a similar path, but he never quite reached the same level of recognition or became as memorable as Brown was in his prime. Still, the influence was there, and for fans who paid attention, it was easy to spot the connection between the two. In the end, from Razor Ramon's Scarface-inspired swagger to Bray Wyatt's creepy, dark presence, the world of wrestling has been full of characters shaped by iconic figures from movies and pop culture. These wrestlers didn't just copy what came before, they made it their own, creating something special with every move and every line. These influences did more than just give them a cool look. They gave their characters depth, making their stories even more unforgettable. For some, these inspirations helped them rise to greatness, while for others, the imitations didn't quite hit the mark. So, what makes an imitation more than just a copy? And who will be the next wrestler to take something from outside the ring and turn it into a whole new legacy? Thanks for being with us through this video. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, give us a thumbs up, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your subscription helps us continue creating quality content for you.